I don't know how many of you probably lead a happier life if you don't watch the news very often. But I woke this morning and turned on the news to find of more evil seems to be running rampant. Shootings, shooting at another college. I don't know if you know this, but in Australia, at their first celebration of Hanukkah, a Jewish gathering was shot up by at least two different gunmen. There's just evil in the world. And as I think about it, and if you don't know, I prepare my sermon series and my messages way in advance. But God knew the message that I was going to bring today would be relevant to what would be going on today because He sees everything in one setting. He's not surprised by anything that is going on, that has happened or will happen. So we're talking about the coming King, and today we want to talk about His kingdom. Now, when we talk about kingdoms, the first thing that comes to my mind right now is Chiefs Kingdom. I am a Chiefs fan, and as Stan reminded everyone this morning, yes, the Chiefs are not very good this year, but that's okay. We had 30-some years of, almost 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, almost like we are God's chosen football team, because we stunk it up royally for a long time. Last 5 years, not so bad. We're going to have a down year, and that's okay. But all those people that cheer for the Chiefs, we're in Chiefs Kingdom, and this year being a Chief in the kingdom is not as glorious, right? Except we had this royal wedding coming up between Travis Kelce and some singer, I don't know what's her name, something, right? But we think of kingdoms, right? We think of things that pull people together. And contrary to a lot of people's opinions, sports are not as important as they make them out to be. This time of year, I give up a lot of my time and apparently a lot of my soul to referee some basketball games. And I watch as parents and kids, boy, they sure put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into what happens inside of an hour and 15 of a game. I fell into a trap a couple weeks ago. When we were doing a tournament in a small town just south of here, I fell into a trap, and the trap I fell into, and I'll get into detail here in a minute, is looking at things that are going on in my world or around me in my world and thinking that I could actually fix them, thinking that I can actually make things right. I told you I referee. I was at this tournament. It was a week-long tournament, 3rd grade through 7th and 8th grade. Okay, little schools all gathered at this other little school, had these games all week. So I refereed from 3rd grade all the way up. Small gym, which made it nice for me because I'm old and I didn't have to run near as bad as some of these big courts like Sequoia or whatever. But I ref anywhere from 3rd grade all the way to 4A, right? So from really bad basketball all the way to pretty darn good basketball with dunks and rim bending and all that fun stuff, okay? So a wide range. All week, we had been calling this tournament. 3rd grade, 4th grade, all the way through. Same 4 guys. Me and this other guy worked together quite a bit. We come to Friday, championship day. And I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, when it hit Friday, everyone lost their ever-loving freaking mind. 3rd and 4th graders, right? They can barely walk and run. And now all of a sudden, because it's Friday, parents took off work, my kid's in the final. From the very tip-off of my first game, 9 o'clock in the morning, 3rd and 4th grade kids, I have a set of parents in the stands yelling at me. That's a walk. That's a foul. You can't let them get away with it. Come on, you got to blow your whistle and you've got to do your job. I had a timeout 2 minutes into the game, and I went over and tried to talk to them about this. And all they wanted to do was tell me how I didn't know what I was doing. How dare I not call foul? How dare I not stop the atrocities that were happening to their little yard munchkin? I tried to explain to them. All week, we have been calling this game the same way. These are 3rd and 4th graders. They're going to travel. They're going to foul. They're going to roll on the ground. They're going to pick boogers and flick them at each other. Whatever it is, I try and call the game according to who's in front of me. This isn't all set for a basketball. This is little kids. Let's keep them playing the game. They wouldn't have any of it until I said, if you're not going to stop, I'm going to ask you to leave. Then they kind of changed. But what it exposed is that they wanted things done for them and for their kids. They wanted the calls because they were not going to be wronged and their kids weren't going to be cheated from a piece of wood that literally was this big with a piece of metal on it that says, you won a tournament this year in Podunk, Oklahoma. Right? But they were fighting with all they had for that piece of fleeting trophy. You know, what I have found interesting, unless you go to a game and you're sitting near me, because my wife and I are pretty pragmatic, and we're like, they walked, they fouled, why didn't they call that? No one yells at me, my kid walked, blow your whistle. My kid hacked that person. No one does that. It's always, I've been wronged, my kid's been wronged, you need to fix it. What brought the change? What brought the vitriol? Just one little trophy. Even in the coaches, right? The coaches that before the game are joking with us and wanting to be our friends, now we're blind and we just don't want what's best for them and their team. It's amazing. What changes? What do we see on display? Well, what we see all of a sudden is what's really in people's hearts, isn't it? All of a sudden, sports bring out and expose who we are. And at the core of it, guys, is selfishness and pride. It really is selfishness and pride. I've got to win. I've got to be first. It's not about teaching my kids discipline. It's not about the kids learning how to be gracious, how to help other kids up. It's about me getting what I think I deserve. I want you to hear this morning. And this is a statement, and even when I was writing it this week and talking, I have another guy that we're writing, I'm writing this with Ron in Illinois. I get 40 minutes. He only gets 10 minutes today because they have their Christmas thing. But I told him, I said, here's my statement. And I said, I know I sound like a Pentecostal preacher on TV, but this is true, guys. Whatever happens in the spiritual realm will be manifested in the physical. You need to understand that. Whatever happens in the spiritual realm is going to show up in the physical. Our problem is that we only know, and most of us truly only live in the physical realm. So what happens in the physical realm, we have to try and control. We have to try and make it happen our way because this is all we know. This is all we understand. Even many of you who have said, I have followed Jesus Christ, you have not walked in that spiritual walk long enough to truly understand and see the transformation yet. And my goal today is that we all understand we're fighting a spiritual battle, not a physical one. When Jesus was delivered over to Pilate, right? The only thing the Jews could do to try and get Jesus on that cross so they didn't have to be the ones with bloody hands, so they didn't have to be the ones that got him crucified. All they could bring to them is that Jesus has claimed that he is king of the Jews. So they brought him before Pilate and said, hey, this man claims that he is going to overthrow the Roman Empire. You have got to do something. So Pilate questions him. And Pilate asked him, are you truly the king of the Jews? And that's where we find that verse in John 18:36. Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my would have been fighting that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not of this world. All of Jesus' contemporaries, even all of his close friends, were looking for this physical kingdom. They were looking for this physical deliverance. Even the prophecies, right? Even in the book of Daniel, we read in Daniel 2:44, and in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all the kingdoms that bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. When Daniel talks about the visions they saw, he said, of all of these other kingdoms that are going to come and go, king, there's going to be one that's going to come that's never going to end. So Israel has this promise. God even gives a glimpse of this back even further to King David. In 2 Samuel 7:12, it says this, when your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, talking to David, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. So there it is. A physical, literal, earthly kingdom. Everyone understood it. Everyone that read it understood that it was coming from David's line. So why would they not expect that if Jesus is the Messiah, why wouldn't he be raising up an army and overthrowing the Roman Empire? Well, because they didn't get this very principle that I told you earlier in the message. Everything that happens in the spiritual realm is going to be manifested in the physical realm. Before Jesus could set up his physical earthly kingdom, he had to take care of the spiritual realm. Because if the spiritual realm is not taken care of, then the physical kingdom is going to rot right back to where the spiritual realm is. I don't know about you. I know this week we've had some people experiencing death in their families, or even this year. But I don't know about you, and this sounds bad, but when my mom passed away, yes, I miss her physical presence, but I am thankful she is not dealing with the effects how cancer was eating up her body. Can you imagine that? Living years with your body just keep decaying. See, even death is a mercy from God that he's going to set things right one day in the end. But when he kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden and he set those guards at the front gate with the flaming sword, he was trying to protect them. If they would have eaten of the tree of life and lived forever in sin, lived forever with a decaying body, man, the pain, the sorrow, what happens in the spiritual realm will show up in the physical. Jesus had to take care of the spiritual realm first. When Jesus told Pilate, my kingdom is not of this world, what he's telling him is, I've got other business to take care of straight. Don't worry, I'm coming for you later. You can get by now on me, Pilate, because right now I've got something that is more important. Without a spiritual victory, there is no physical victory. Guys, without the death on the cross and without the empty tomb, there is no hope for us that we're going to spend eternity in heaven with God. Years ago, I went to a doctor complaining. I had a nodule on the back of my neck, swollen lymph node or whatever, cough, runny nose, always got issues. And she's like, it's just a side effect of all this other stuff, right? Your cold symptoms, your nose. She gave me some medicine, gave me some cough stuff, took care of it, right? Everything seemed to ease. Later on, I noticed I was having some digestive issues, so they called me in, did scope, did that thing where they go the wrong way up a one-way street, and said, you know what, you've got Crohn's disease. So they treated all the symptoms with drugs, and that seemed to happen. And then there was another symptom. I got another gland swollen on my jaw. This time, they did more invasive procedures, they did more things, and they found out that I had cancer. See, all the other doctors treated every symptom that they saw, and they treated it properly. I'm not mad at those other doctors. It was only until they did more digging and they got more invasive that they found out the real reason Scott has all these sinus issues, the real reason he had these digestive issues is because he has cancer from his nose down to his behind. That's the issue. But it took a deeper dive. And see, when they took care of my cancer, guess what happened to those other symptoms? They cured up. See, we've got to take care of the heart of the issue. The issue at the basketball games is not the basketball games. The issue at the basketball game is not whether the ref is the best or the worst. The issue at the basketball games for everyone involved is that it exposes our pride and our selfishness and our spiritual state. In my illustration about the basketball game, I said I had a bad game. And it wasn't that I was sick. It wasn't that I was making a bunch of bad calls. It's that I was dealing with something. So later on, I called a pastor friend of mine. And I told him what went on, and we commiserated. Told him about the story, a little kid's game, so quick and everything. And after we talked about it for a while, and we both talked about how people yelled at us and coaches or whatever, and they don't know the rules and they don't understand, which is true, by the way. When I became a ref, I had to learn truly what the rules are, and some of the things I thought were rules really aren't rules, right? Like, let me help you sound better in a basketball game if you go watch your kids. Never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever say over the back. There is no foul called over the back. You can say he's pushing or she's pushing. Now you got it right. All right? So once I figured out the rules or whatever, we're sitting there commiserating, and my pastor friend says, Scott, what you're failing to remember is this is a spiritual issue. Ugh! He got it right. I'm getting mad at parents because all they're reflecting is really what's in their heart. And then after he said that, the Holy Spirit picked up that same 2x4 that he hit me with, and the Holy Spirit hit me on the other cheek because that's biblical, right? When you get hit on one cheek, turn the other cheek. And the Holy Spirit said, Scott, the problem is you don't like being told that you're wrong, and you don't like having your decisions questioned. And who are you to think that you're above being questioned? Uh-oh. So you see, my pride and my selfishness are exposed at the basketball game too, isn't it? See, there's a spiritual battle. There is a spiritual war that has to be won first. We'll never see or find peace in our lives or in this world until the spiritual battle is taken care of. And the battle we fight isn't always with other people, guys. A lot of the times, if we're honest, just like my illustrations today, they're really within ourselves. We have to learn to die and give up to ourselves. Jesus said, people will ridicule. They will say all things against you. Why should we expect not to hear that? When I think of battles and wars, I think of some great old movies. Big Red One. Some of you don't even know what that is. Go home, Google it, and watch it. Good movie. Green Beret. Pearl Harbor, right? There's more than one Pearl Harbor movie, by the way. The Dirty Dozen. Now there's a movie. All right? And of course, every one of the franchise of the Expendables and John Wick movies, right? Great warrior type movies. In each one of those movies, you have big muscular guys fighting the battles and winning, or you have the smaller, well-trained hand-to-hand combat guys with all the kung fu and everything, and they always prevail, right? However, when it comes to spiritual battles, that's not the kind of people that God uses. In Jesus' kingdom, those who feel small, insignificant, unnoticed, people who feel unspecial, become some of the most amazing and powerful people that God uses. Antique Roadshow. You ever watch that show? So one of the episodes, this couple has inherited this blanket, and they bring it in to the assessors, right? They got it from their aunt. They don't think it's anything meaningful. And as the assessor looks it over, they said, this is a rare, rare find. It was an original Navajo blanket. I guess apparently one just like it had recently sold at auction for $500,000. All they thought was some blanket that, Aunt What's-Her-Name had sitting on her couch for all these years, right? They didn't really know much about it. They didn't really care for it. Oh, let's just take it there. We're going there anyway. $500,000. They didn't know it had such a high value. Many people, many of us, are unaware of our high value. If you feel undervalued, unnoticed, unappreciated, just wait till you see what Jesus can do with you. Jesus often started with the smallest things to talk about the mightiest things, right? The mustard seed, a pinch of yeast in the dough and how it affects and spreads through the whole thing. One little lamp, right? One little pearl. A child, right? In Matthew 18:2-3, he called a little child to them and placed the child among them. He said, truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter into the kingdom of heaven. Can you just see all the adults? What is he talking about? The little things. Those are the things that God's kingdom, that Jesus' kingdom thrives on. God loves to take small, unnoticed things and make them mighty and impressive. A baby floating in a little basket in the Nile becomes the leader of a nation. A young shepherd boy, right? Taking care of the flocks, not even thought of to come in and go before Samuel when they're looking for a king. He becomes one of the mightiest kings of Israel, and who through we track back Jesus being the king of Israel. A simple fisherman is the first one to preach the gospel, and they say 3,000 people converted on the day of Pentecost. A woman going in shame at the heat of the day to the well flips her entire community for the cause of Jesus Christ. A baby is born in a small, out-of-the-way stable. Shepherds, the outcast, hanging out with the sheep at night, are heralded by a chorus of angels, and one of the first ones to come and see the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. A small boy's lunch would feed 5,000 people, right? And when the disciples finally find something that will feed this group that's in front of them, they bring the small boy and his lunch before Jesus, and they tell Jesus this, "But what is such a small gift for such a great need?" See, the disciples didn't understand. Little is much when God is in it. He loves taking the little things and doing great things. Matthew 2:6 repeats a prophecy from Micah chapter 5. And it says, "And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Smallest town, out of the way people are the people God uses in His battle to bring victories in the spiritual realm. The spiritual battle isn't fought by the biggest and often not by the brightest. Instead, it's fought by the least that God uses. Why does God do that? I think because a lot of times the people that seem to be the least, the people that seem to be fighting back from being down on their luck, are the ones that realize their pride and shame have to be set aside, and how much people really do matter. You know, on YouTube and all the sensation, there's a lot of videos shown up, and we've seen them even in the regular news stories, where people will go out and they'll give money to the homeless people or whatever, and even the homeless people among share it with other people. Well, I saw a story on Fox News several weeks ago about a young man. I guess he wrote a book, but his dad had given him some money to do great things with. And so what he started doing was dressing up as someone in need, going on a street corner or something and acting like someone in need. And as people would respond to his need, or if he said, "I need a hug, will someone give me a hug?" When someone responded to that, he would then bless them with a large sum of money. And one of the video clips I saw was a man who didn't have hardly anything. And the guy's sign just said, "Hungry, please help." And the guy reached into his pocket. It was another guy that was homeless, reached into his pocket and gave him everything he had. And of course, this guy who was faking it then gave this man a great blessing. See, it's not how much we have. It's about, are we willing to humble ourselves and let God be used in and through it. Spiritual battle has to be won for there to be peace in the world. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." Well, the truth is, His kingdom will be of this world, but He first had to take care of the spiritual issue, because without Him dying sacrificially for our sin, we're not going to spend eternity in heaven. The spiritual battle had to be won so that the physical battle can be won as well one day. Spiritual battles cannot be won in or of my power or of yours. But we can engage in the battle if we humble ourselves, submit to God, die to self daily like He calls for us to do. Do you know why we have to die to self daily? Because our pride starts growing back even though we killed it yesterday. It really does. I have to remind myself, hey, I've got to die to myself daily. I've got to not take myself as seriously as I think I should. I've got to trust that God has this, and as long as I'm doing what He asked for me to do, it may not come out the way I want to now, but He promises victory in the end. You know, when we think about it, when Jesus talks about in the Lord's Prayer about kingdoms, He really does nail it, doesn't He? Let's say that last line together. I'll put it on the screen so we all know it. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. See, the spiritual battle has to be won for the physical battle to be won. If you're struggling with something in the physical, guys, I'm not saying that prayer and getting your life right is going to take everything out, but I promise you, when my thinking and my spirit is focused on God, dealing with the physical things I have to deal with become a lot easier. Thy will be done on earth because it's already that way in heaven. Spiritual realm will manifest itself in the physical realm. Thank God that He came and His Son was willing to fight that spiritual battle first. Amen. Let's close in a word of prayer. Father, I thank You for Your word. There's times I don't like it, but I have to say I thank You that it is sharp and powerful and cuts. And when we fall into those temptations where pride and selfishness, even though we could spend many years walking with You, if we're not careful, those weeds grow up in our lives. I pray that You would help us to realize we're fighting a spiritual battle. We don't wrestle with flesh and blood, as Your word says, but we wrestle with principalities and powers in spiritual realms, spiritual darkness. You've given us Your word. You've given us the stories of other saints to encourage us to keep pressing on, to keep seeking You. Thank You for the gift of Your Son. Thank You for the victory that the cross brings. Thank You for the life that the empty tomb brings. Help us to rest in the peace of knowing that You truly are going to win in the end.